目指した未来や全ての君を背負ってたどり着いてみせるから閉ざされた未来を終わらせて今度こそは全て守るよ最後の運命をつかめるやろ
Hey guys, if you haven't already, give the video a like, subscribe to my channel. This is a what if series and I'll be doing more down the road. Plus Ultra! Hey guys, and welcome to What If Deku was Super Boo's reincarnation. Now, I had posted this in my community tab a while back, and I wanted to see you guys' thoughts on it and everything. So, this is a movie right here, and I'm going to be doing a lot more like these. It's quite fun doing movies to talk about a whole topic that's going to happen throughout the whole series. So, stick in for this ride. It's going to be a long video. But anyway, it's going to be a fun video too. So, we're going to start off at first. Now, this is the first part where Deku was born. But in this what if, Deku is born unusual. See, Deku was born with pink skin and his irises, well, his eyes, his pupils are basically red. And his eyes are basically like black. So, yeah. And the doctors think that Deku had awakened his quirk really early. That's what they think, like it's a mutation, like quirk, seeming as if some people are born as if a bird, or it's different things. And they think Deku is the first one, just to awaken this quirk early on, and that's what he tells his mother. So early on, Deku goes out throughout living normally, and knowing that he has a quirk, his mother always tells him that he has a quirk, which, keep in mind, the doctors really can't say if it is a quirk or if it is not a quirk. Deku is just mutated, like it's a mutation. It's something extraordinary, and they like to do more tests. So with that being said, Deku growing up would have had a lot of fun as a child, and he wouldn't be as confident, be the same loving Deku that you all know, but this time he'll have that much strong side too. Now, upon Deku learning about what he can do, yes, of course, he knows that he can fly. He knows that he can shoot ki blasts. He knows that he can turn stuff into candy. It's just common knowledge about his powers. It's just like he innately knows about what he can do and what he can do and how strong he is. He's even told his mom that he thinks he can go toe-to-toe with All Might. And, yeah, that's saying something. And like, his mother is looking at Izuku. She tries to wonder what his quirk is, but she also tells her son that he's gonna be a strong hero someday. So with all that being said, Deku does train. He does train his quirk out to maintain, he explores it. And with exploring comes training to learn new stuff. So he learns that he learned that he can fly around real fast. He learned that he can turn, and well, basically anything that he wants, he can turn it into. If he wanted to turn it into a sword or a gun or basically a person, anything. Deku, I never seen Majin Buu create a person or anything like that. But as far as non-animate objects such as that, but I'm pretty sure he could create a vehicle or something like that. But let's not go off a tangent or anything like that. But anyway, so with that, Deku learns to create a bunch of stuff using his power, his creation ability. Now, with that being said, it's kind of different from Momo's. It's basically, you know what it is for you Dragon Ball Z fans out there and Dragon Ball Super. You know that it's like a beam, but it's not going to come from an antenna because Deku doesn't have an antenna. He basically just shoots the beam through a finger and turns it. Anyway, so as learning all these powers, he knows he is very strong too. So Deku basically trains as much as he can. Now, this is the part where we get to the first part of the anime where we are in the classroom. Now, the teacher comes into the classroom and he asks each student, what do you guys want to do for, well, basically growing up? But he doesn't continue on. He just throws the papers in the air and says, I know what you guys want to do. You all want to go to the hero track. And every student in the classroom would start using their quirks in very ecstatic ways. Now, the teacher tells the kids to quiet down. You can't use your quirks in class. Now, Bakugou stands up on his desk and he says, hey, teach, don't lock me in with all these losers. They be lucky to become a D-lister to some boring-ass hero. Now, this is where the kids would go into a frenzy towards Bakugou. And this is where the teacher would be flipping through his papers and he would say, Midoriya, so you want to go to UA too? And this is where Bakugo looks at Midoriya. Now, throughout their childhood, Deku and Bakugo would have had a very fearsome childhood with each other. Now, it's the same Deku as you know and love him and everything, but it's more of a competitive side. Him and Bakugo would have been constantly fighting each other, basically one-upping each other, but Deku would always win. Bakugo hasn't come close to beating him. Even if his explosions are doing something, Bakugo has even stated that Deku's body is very, very weird. Because one time, Bakugo got so mad that he used all his sweat glands and hit Deku with a full-powered explosion. And it basically erased the top part of his body. Now, Deku basically just regenerated from that. And he looked at Bakugo and hit him upside the head saying, "What are you trying to do, kill me?" As if you could. Now, this would weird Bakugo out because basically he almost thought that he killed Midoriya, but he didn't. So that from that point on, he always said that Deku's body, it moves weird. And he started calling Deku a Majin, saying something like, you're like a Majin or something like that. Some kind of inanimate, unbeatable thing. You have some weird regeneration, Midoriya. And it'd be the first time he ever called him Midoriya. That might be showing a sign of respect for him. But anyway, let's not go over on that. So, Bakugo wouldn't do the necessarily thing that he did. Because out of this camp, they have a rivalry with each other. So he's not going to walk up to Deku's desk and blow up his book or anything. No, nothing like that. He just asks Deku after class, can they train? And they take all their frustration out on each other while they're training. And yeah, much stronger versions than their canon counterparts. So with all that being said, now we're going to fast forward to when Deku is walking through the tunnel. Now, as Deku is walking through the tunnel, this is where this sludge would come out of nowhere and grab Izuku. Now, Izuku would be trying to look around, but he sees that there's this sludge villain, and he says, "Oh, so you think you got me?" So Deku, basically with his hands, he just basically creates a beam and turns the sludge villain into just a bunch of candy. Now, Deku scoops up the candy and put it in a bottle, and this is where All Might comes up out of nowhere, and this is where Deku hands him the bottle. And All Might would have told Deku, like, how did you sense me? Like, how did you even know I was around the corner? I could feel your presence. Every individual on this world has a thing called ki, and it's easy to track and sense. I knew you were close, so that's why I did this for you. Deku put the top on the bottle and basically turned the villain back to normal. Now, the sludge villain would just be looking around in the bottle but can't escape. So he would hand the bottle to All Might, and this is where All Might would ask the kid, "What kind of powers do you have?" Deku would say, "I have a bunch of powers. I know I got a great sense of my my awareness is up, and I'm very strong. Possibly right now I'm 15. I'm probably even stronger than you, All Might. I probably can even contend with you." And this is where All Might is scratching his chin because he's very interested in his kid's ideals. So he tells Izuku, "Young Midoriya is your name, right?" He tells Midoriya to come to Dagobah Beach and for tomorrow for training. He wants to see just exactly what Deku is capable of. So Deku would say yes to that with stars in his eyes. He gets to train with his idol. That's incredible. So with that being said, the next day would come with All Might taking the sludge villain. So no whole incident with that thing happening with the sludge villain outside of the bottle. That wouldn't even happen. And even if it did, say for example, Deku would have just turned him into candy again. Problem solved. But even so. Now we skip forward to tomorrow where Deku is at Dagobah Beach training with All Might. Now All Might is about to, All Might basically buffs up and he starts to think, should I only use 50? I shouldn't go all out on him. And this is where Deku is just basically loosening up his body and he's saying, so this beach is really dirty. Deku then grabs all the trash that's on the beach and turns it into basically structure, like basically wood or basically lawn chairs and stuff like that. He just turns it into beach wear and a whole bunch of beach equipment. And he sets it down nicely, making the beach look nice and beautiful. He even has some palm trees created to make the beach even look more beautiful than it is. And this is where Deku and All Might would be looking at each other. And All Might would say, you could have did that after we were about to fight. And Deku would say, oh, well, I thought that you can basically fight in air with me. Seeming as if I seen you fight in air before. And this is where All Might would be saying, what? So Deku would start to float, and then he would start to fly around, and this is where he would urge All Might to follow him. Now All Might would jump up, and then the two Titans would clash with each other. Now this is where All Might is gauging Deku's strength. Now Deku is releasing some heavy blows, punching All Might in the stomach, punching him in the side, and then slamming him towards the ground. Now All Might shoots back up and hits Deku directly in the stomach. Now Deku feels a blunt force from this attack, and the both of them are trading blows with each other. Now Deku feels each and every one of the attacks, but the thing about it is Deku is regenerating from each and every attack that All Might gives him. And Deku is not running out of stamina like that. He can keep going. Really, he can keep going. So with that being said, Deku and All Might ends up doing a huge fist. They end up clashing fists, put it that way, and it will cause this like miniature like combustion to send both of them flying back. Now this is where All Might would start to use more of his power, start to increase more of his power, going to 100%. Now with that being said, Deku looks at All Might and he says, "You weren't taking this seriously, were you? You know I could have easily beaten you, and for some reason I can tell that you're not quite at your full potential, are you, All Might?" This is where the both of them would float back to the ground while laying back on the ground, and All Might would tell Deku that he sustained an injury a while ago from a villain that he fought. And this is where All Might buffs down and goes back to his small form, and this is where he sees the wound that he has on his body. Now Deku walks over to All Might and he heals the wound that All Might has, basically healing the injury that All Might had on him. And All Might would be shocked by this. No, not even Recovery Girl could have did this kind of healing. And as much expenses that he had, he thought he was just gonna be like this forever and possibly die one day. No, he's healed. His body functions. Everything is just fully normal. He can breathe right. He doesn't have to feel like he has to cough up blood or anything like that. No, he's completely back to his prime. Now, this is where Deku would say, "My abilities are very fascinating and they can do extraordinary things." So that's just one of them. And I feel like I can do more. I'm still learning myself. Even though I've like breached the surface of what I can do and everything, I'm still learning about new techniques and ways to evolve them. Deku would say as he sits on the ground. And he says, "So what all can you do?" So Deku would then create a pink energy spear in his hand, and then it would grow bigger and bigger and bigger till All Might sees this, and this is what Deku says, "I could literally destroy this planet with this. This is only the smart conclusion that this is so much energy. If I was to let this drop on the earth, it would go boom." And that's not even an understatement, and that's not me being cocky. It's just that this is a lot of energy, and it's just coming from me. And that's incredible, as Deku just basically dispersed the energy, and it turns into nothing but a bunch of sparkles that falls down. Now, while this is being said, All Might does ask Deku to become his successor. And Deku would look at All Might and say, well, that would be interesting, but what do you mean by become your successor? Now, All Might would look at Deku and he would say, "I want you to become my successor." He tells him about One For All, the Quark, and All For One. Yes, this earlier on. So with all that being said, this is where Deku comes to tells All Might, no. I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there that would use your power better than me. I mean, I already have so many abilities and I'm already strong, possibly even stronger than you. And this could be tested out after we get done talking. Now, they talk for a little bit more, getting to know each other and getting to know a lot more things about each other. And Deku telling All Might more about his quirk, and All Might telling Deku about all the battles that he had. It would end up becoming nightfall, and they would have forgot about the time, them having to spar against each other. So really not knowing who is stronger than who. So with that being said, Deku would eventually go home, and All Might would tell Deku to train with him for the next 10 months. Now, during that, this is where Deku would come to the beach again, but this time he would see Mirio. Mirio would be there training with all three of them, and he said he'll be training with them for the next 10 months. Even though he has school, he'll be here training to learn better use of his quirk, his new quirk. And, so you gave him one for all. So 10 months would come into play. Now, during these 10 months, Deku will learn to master his ki control. He will learn to fly at great speeds. He will learn that he can breathe in space. It's not that hard. He would learn that wasn't something new to him. So once he found out that he could breathe in space, he would go up there and take a deep breath, and he would be ecstatic by this, that he can breathe in space. So basically putting him up a scale, basically, let's say he's on planet level, put it that way. He's already on planet level. He's been on planet level since he was a fucking kid. So, anyway, by basically moon level. He was on moon level when he was a kid, but as he grew up, yeah, he became planet level. Ooh, that was a skip. All right, so now we're going to get to basically the last month of the training. And it's like the last day. So Deku, Mirio, and All Might, they basically rest. These three have become best of friends. Basically, they formed a very good relationship between mentor and students. And Mirio and Izuku have formed a good friendship with each other. Even knowing that Mirio is very high-spirited and he gives off the same resemblance as All Might, it's pretty much hard to tell the two apart because Mirio is always smiling, and All Might, now he has a reason to keep smiling because he's not injured no more. And you barely see his small form. That's not even a thing no more. The small form is gone. It's just regular old All Might. The buff All Might that you see, that's just his normal form. He stays like that. Anyway, so with all that being said, now we get to the entrance exam. Now, during the entrance exam, Deku would have got there and basically just walked there with his clothes in his backpack. Well, basically, yeah, clothes in his backpack. So once he took the test, he wouldn't be mumbling out loud. He would just be focusing on the test. And this is where Tengia Ida would stand up and ask President Mike to explain the three robots. And he would. And he would tell the students to avoid the 0-point robot. Only worry about the robots that have points over them. But anyway, with all that being said, they get to the training field, and this is where Deku just launches off and starts destroying robots. And most of the students are just weirded out by this, like, he's not going to wait for the teacher to start the exam. And President Mark even just says that go, go, go. There is no time limit or no go in battle. Once you're fighting a villain, you basically just go off. You don't wait for somebody to tell you to go and attack. Anyway, so Deku would start to destroying robots, each and every one of them, racking up a lot of points. And he would do some Luffy-type stuff by elongating his arms and just smashing through robots and then basically pulling his arms back. Now, this is where Deku would start to shoot ki blasts at some of the robots. And then he would just stop. He would yawn and then look to a rock and create a feast out of the rock and just start eating. He has enough points. But then all of a sudden everything would start shaking as Deku's underground reading a magazine and drinking a cup of juice. He looks up to see this giant robot out of nowhere come, and he looks to his left to see this girl under a rock. Basically, he can tell that her leg is either sprained or broken. So he walks over to her, lifts the rock off of her, picks her up, and takes her to safety. But he stops midway and turns the robot into nothing but confetti as it falls down. And this is where he sets Ochaku down. Now, Deku looks at her and says, "Are you okay?" And she says, "No, it's my ankle. I think I sprained it." Deku would have looked at her ankle and shot a beam at it, and he would ask her, "How does it feel now?" And she would stand up, tapping her foot against the ground, and says, "Oh, it's all right. Wait, you can heal people? And you can... Wait, did you just turn that robot into a bunch of confetti?" Now, most of the students looking at him, and even the teachers in the stand, would be shocked by this, but not All Might, because he knew what Deku could do. But most of the teachers would be shocked that Deku just turned a giant robot into nothing but confetti. And basically walked over there, picked the rock up with little to no ease at all. So, yeah, they would be shocked about Deku's skills and might have to question it a little bit earlier to see what all he can do. But they have good hopes about what this kid can become. So, with the entrance exam over with, now we go to the house. Now, Deku is walking around with the house with his mother, and his mother would have kept up her diet, kept training, because she wanted to basically keep up with her son, because she taught him, basically when he was a kid, she stayed fit to keep him into training, to keep him skilled and everything else. So yeah, Deku's mom is not small or munchkin or anything like that. She's still the normal height of herself, and yeah, she's very much in shape. Anyway, so now we get to the first day of school. After Deku gets his letter in the mail, his mom gives him his letter, and All Might comes out on the hologram, and he says, "Young Midoriya, you have been accepted into My Hero Academia," and he tells him that he's going to be a teacher there and everything. So Deku is ecstatic by the idea, so he welcomes it. So the next day, this is what Deku says. He wants Bakugo to be in this class this time around, and he really likes to see new faces, but something about that Ida guy, he just hopes he's not in this classroom. But luck isn't on his side, because once he opened the door, he's arguing with Bakugo. So then Ida looks back at Deku, and he walks up to him, greeting Deku and asking him, well, basically stating his name. Hi, my name is Tinya Ida, and what you did in the tournament, well, what you did in the entrance exam was extraordinary. The both of them would shake hands and say, my name is Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you. Now, one girl would rush Izuku, and the both of them would just be looking at each other, observing each other in a very cartoonish-like way. And it would make most of the students look at them as if they're both just looking at each other. And the only thing that the two of them could blurt out is say, we both got pink skin. And of course, Deku would introduce himself to Mino Ashido, and she would introduce herself to them. Yeah, so the two of them would basically pay attention to that, because Mino and Deku are going to be very close to each other as we progress throughout this story. So anyway, now the students are talking with each other and getting to know each other. Ochaku would come up to thank Deku for saving her during the entrance exam, and yeah, Deku would say, don't worry about it. And also, what is your quirk? And she would tell Deku all about her quirk being zero gravity and stuff like that, but she can't hold it for too long, otherwise she'll throw up a rainbow. But anyway, now Shoto Aizawa walks in, but he walks in a weird fashion because he's in a sleeping bag, and he tells everyone to get in their seats. So he pulls out all these uniforms out of the sleeping bags, and he gives them to the students and tells them to wear this. Now, he tells the students to come outside for their quirk apprehension test. Now, with that being said, this is where Ochaku would say, but don't we have orientation to go to? And this is where Shoto Aizawa would look at her. Well, Aizawa would just look at her and say, we don't need to waste our time with meaningless orientations and speeches. I want to see what you guys got, and I want to see if you have potential to become heroes. This is no time to slack off. This first day of yours is going to be hell. So meet me at the training field so I can judge you. And then he would just leave. Now, with all that, the kids would just basically get all their uniforms on and go to the training field. And this is where Aizawa would be explaining the quirk apprehension test. He looks at Bakugo and asks Bakugo how far did he throw a softball in middle school. And Bakugo would say, basically 170 meters. And this is where he would throw Bakugo the ball and say, throw it now. Now, throughout all the training and stuff that Deku and Bakugo has done throughout the years, Bakugo has been incredibly enhanced, and once he throws the ball, he gets over 940 meters. This time what he did was focus all his energy into the form of the ball, behind the ball, and when he threw it, it was basically like he threw a blast-like streak that was trailing behind the ball and shot it like a rocket. I hope that's easy to explain. I hope I explained that too much so you don't get too confused by it. But yeah, basically 940 meters. And Deku was ecstatic by this. He said, Bakugo, you really have improved, because last time you threw a ball, you only got like 740 meters. But now it's basically improved. I'm surprised that it landed at 940. Maybe it's a lucky number for you. Anyway, so as Bakugo and Deku would co-host, most of the students would start to say that this looks like it's fun. This is exciting. This is entertaining. And this is where Shoto Aizawa gets a very serious look on his face and says, okay, if this is going to be fun, how about this? Let's raise the stakes. Any one of you who come in last place is getting expelled. How's that for fun? And he smiles at this, with all the students now feeling tensed up. So now all of them tries their hardest, each and every try they do, for the long jump, the hand grip, and I think it was another one in there. I'm not too sure if I'm forgetting it. But anyway, so with all those trials going the same way they did in Canon, the one thing that's different is Deku would be coming in first place with that. His strength is on a new level, his long jump is on a new level, and his speed is on a new level. Once he say for example, once Shoto Aizawa told them to go, Deku was already at the finish line. Yes. Interesting, isn't it? But with that being said, I'm pretty sure you all guys already know what this man can do, what Super Buu can do. So we don't really need him too much go into that. But with the battle trial, nobody would come in last place because Shoto Aizawa said that it was just a rile up to get them to do their best. And they would all let out a sigh. Deku would throw the ball, but he would get, say for example, when Shoto Aizawa told him to throw the ball because it's the last thing that he wants to see. He wants to see what he's capable of. But he just wanted to ease the suspension. Well, with the tension around it, the students, because he filled the air and he could feel some of them were scared because they did not want to basically get kicked out of the school. So with that, he throws Deku the ball, and Deku basically starts to think, if I throw this too hard, I could basically destroy a lot of stuff around this area. So I have to use a very small percentage. So Shoto Aizawa will be looking at Deku, and as he threw the ball, this is what Deku's, okay, so it seems, sorry for stuttering, but since Deku's quirk is basically a genetic mutation, what it is basically, all Shoto Aizawa can do, he can't turn Deku's quirk off, but he can basically weaken it. So once Deku is throwing, he throws the ball and only it gets 80 meters. And this is where he looks at Shoto Aizawa and say, why did you do that? And Shoto would tell Deku that everyone here has given it their all. You need to give it your all and go plus ultra. Are you trying to insult your comrades? And this is where Deku would then jump back from Shoto and say, well, Aizawa, let's put it that way. He would jump back from Aizawa and he would say that, no, I am not basically berating them or looking down on them in any kind of way. It's that if I let this ball off with my full strength, every last one of you would get blown back. And that's not even an understatement. I even believe that if I did throw this ball with my pure strength, I could destroy this building that's behind us and cause a lot of damage. And this is where Shoto Aizawa will be like, what? I want you to believe me, since Aizawa, Mr. Aizawa, is that I'm very strong, and if I will let out my full power, what I'm trying to say is that I'm inexperienced. I'm not fully controlled. Even though I've been training for years and years, I don't have my power down to a T, because there's still some things that I really don't know that I can do, and I don't want to put anybody else's lives in danger. That's why I only wanted to throw the ball at 10%, and 10% was just merely enough. It's not going to be too drastic. So with that 10%, Aizawa would just let Deku throw the ball. Deku would just breathe in and then sling the ball as fast as he could, letting off a huge gust of wind. And with only 10%, the students still could keep their ground, but it was like a strong gust of wind blowing at them. And Shoto Aizawa would look at the meter and say that it was 1,500 meters. And this is where his jaw would drop. Most of the students' jaw would drop. Bakugo, not too much, because he already sensed what Deku is capable of. And even when they were training, Deku didn't even go all out on Bakugo, because he even explained that to him that he's just on a different level. And it's not to brag, but he really just is. Now, once everything is settled with the Quark apprehension test, we're now gonna go home and everything. Deku's gonna go train some more with Bakugo and try to figure out more techniques that he could use for his arsenal, such as basically he wants to learn an ability where he can shoot blast up in the air and basically sense each individual that basically is an enemy towards him. And it's something that he innately knows, that he feels like he just did once before, but it probably was another version of him or something. He tries not to dwell on the thought too much, so him and Bakugo continue training, and Bakugo comes up with howitzer impact and AP shot. So Deku's pushing him that much to improve upon his techniques. Now we get to the next trial, next day. The students are in the classroom talking, and All Might comes busting in. And this is where All Might would tell them that he's running through the door like a normal person when he wasn't. But anyway, the students will notice that All Might is wearing his Silver Age costume. And this is where All Might would explain to the students the battle trial art, and that their costumes are ready, so that if you want to be a hero, you have to basically look the part, basically look stylish or anything like that. Probably why a certain someone doesn't like the way the Hero Society is running to this day. But we're going to say that for later on in the video. Anyway, so with that being said, the students all go and get into their usual attire, their hero attire, and Deku comes out with the same drip as Majin Buu, with the shoe, you know, the same drip. That shit like icy as fuck. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. Anyway, so he comes out with the drip of my Super Buu, and most of the girls basically blush. Well, one of them that does blush is Ashido, and she even says just looks at Deku, basically looking away, having a nosebleed by this. Most of the girls does the same thing. And this is where All Might would say, "Young Midoriya, is this your costume?" And he would say, "I don't know. For some reason, this has just felt unique for me, and it's like it's just a part of me. It's like something that I know I would wear as a hero. It's weird. It just feels like this outfit was just innately in my head, and I just asked the people to make it for me." And this is where he would have an M on his, they would look at the M thing and they'd say, what does that stand for? And Deku would start to think, and he would think hard as steam would start to come out his ears. And this is where Deku would say, Majin. And he would start to rub his head and say, yeah, that took a while to think about. It's like I had to dig through my brain just to search for that one word. But anyway, this M stands for Majin. So as All Might would then begin to explain the battle trial arc, this is where the students would be assigned to their set teams. Now this is a different thing from a canon. This is going to be Mino and Deku and what's the name? Ida and Bakugo. Now, with that being said, Ida and Bakugo would Bakugo would do the same thing. He would run off and leave Ida, but well, not this time. Let's change it up, not this time. Since Bakugo and Ida has been since Bakugo has been training with Deku for years, and they have established a good friendship with each other and a good rivalry, Bakugo is going to stay with Ida and try to plan a way to stop Deku and Mina Ashido. Now, on this time, Deku said that maybe you should go to the floor. He wanted to wait a minute, and then he sat down. He created some stuff for them to eat. And basically, Mina went right along with this as they were waiting for Bakugo. He even played cards. And this is where All Might would say, Young Midoriya, Mino Ashido, can you complete the test? Why are you guys playing cards? As if you're not taking the trial seriously. This is where Deku would say, well, that's surprising. I thought Bakugo was going to come shooting down the hall like a maniac, but I guess I misjudged him. Jesus, this guy has changed over the years. Alright, I wasn't expecting that. So they would rush up to the floor and Bakugo and Ida would be standing right there. And this is where Deku would look at Bakugo and say, I thought you were going to come shooting down the hall like a maniac and get into a fist fight with me. That would have been way more interesting. And this is where Bakugo would say, at first I thought of that, but I didn't think I was going to win hand to hand with you. So that's why I stood behind to plan a strategy with my teammate. It's unusual and I gritted my teeth at the idea, but this was the best solution. So now the three of them would have started getting into scuffles with each other, with Ida trying to run around the room with the bomb. And this is where Deku would then start to basically let out a high-pitched scream. He just screams, and basically they have to cover their ears. Ida stops, drops the bomb, covers his ears, and Deku stops throwing Mina at the bomb, and she grabs it. Basically, when he threw her, she slid with using her acid as skates and grabbed the bomb. To which Deku says, see? Many other techniques. I didn't even know I had a hypersonic scream like that, but that's going to basically come in handy. I wonder what all I could do with that. Deku starts to think, and this is where Bakugo just starts to grit his teeth and everything and say that he should have just ran at him when he had the chance. Then Bakugo would breathe out and he would just sigh, shrugging his shoulders, and he would run up to Deku and say, now I need to learn new techniques to fight against you, but I'm not going to be training with you after school. There's some things that I have to handle with my mom and my father. So, we can train some other time, possibly the day after tomorrow. Anyway, Bakugo will leave, and most of the trials will go the same way as they did in canon. Now, we get to the USJ arc. Now, all the students are getting ready to get on the bus, and most of them are talking and coaxing with each other, learning about each other's quirks and abilities. And most of them don't berate Bakugo like they did in canon, because Bakugo is not like hot-headed or anything like that. I mean, they still talk, but they don't talk to the level that they did in canon, saying that this is that and the third. I mean, Sue. Let's call her Sue. Sue then says something to Bakugo, which does get up under his skin. And she does say that Bakugo can't be a hero, and he tells her that he'll kick her ass, and she just says, see? That part right there. So she's probably the only one that got up under his skin. But Bakugo just breathes out and says, whatever, and just continue to look out the window. Anyway, so as most of them are talking, most of the students Suyu does ask Deku about his quirks and everything that he can do. Because she does say to Deku that he he has a lot of quirks. And Deku just says, it's basically only one quirk, but it's dubbed as a mutation. I can shoot the beams from my hand and basically turn anything to that I want, using it as creation. I call it a creation beam. It's somewhat similar to Momo's creation quirk. But with that, I can just create whatever I want without getting tired. And also, I can create energy out of nothing. Like basically, Deku just put his hand out and creates this spear full of energy. And he says that's not all I can do. I can shoot these little energies as beams, as he makes a small orb on each one of his fingers. Now, and Deku says that's not mostly what I can do, but it's a bunch of other abilities and other techniques that I can do, but I'm still grasping everything though. So once they get to USJ, they start to get greeted by the hero 13. Now she goes and takes them through trials and everything and starts talking with them. But this is where Deku gets a bad feeling. And he sees that a portal is opened. Now Deku looks at the portal and Deku gets scared as he sees all these villains coming out. And this is where Aizawa starts to panic. But Kirashima starts to say that this is intense. They even got fake villains to play the part too. Now Shoto Aizawa gets ready and gets his glasses on as he says those are not like fake villains. Those are real. And all of a sudden he sees this pink blur just rush by him. And all of a sudden Deku just wraps up with each one of the villains that were there and starts berating and bashing and punching each one of them. Like basically demolishing Shigaraki's villains, each and every one of them. And this is where Deku would jump back by Shoto Aizawa and he would tell him that he didn't tell him to attack. And this is where like Deku would say, I'm sorry, Mr. Aizawa, but I just seen an opportunity. Most of these guys just left themselves unguarded or just off guard, put it that way. Anyway, so Shigaraki, Karagiri, and most of the villains, the rest of them would rush out of the, not rush out, but appear out of the portal. And this is where Shigaraki would have his eyes set on Deku as he's the one that just took out most of the villains that were there. Now he would tell Karagiri to teleport them away. And this is where the portal would suck up Deku and most of the kids and just teleport them all over the place, with Shoto Aizawa fighting the remaining rest of the villains. Now with that, Deku appears on in the water, and this is where he sees a shark coming at him, but Deku grabs the shark by his foot and then basically hits the shark on his neck, knocking the guy unconscious and then taking him out of the water. Now this is where Deku floats up in the air and he senses each and every one of the people that is in the water, well, each one of the villains that's in the water. He grabs Mineta and Tsuyu out of the water too, lifting them up by him. And this is where Deku would then start shooting blasts, like basically not blasts to kill them, sort of like how Frieza did in the Tournament of Power when he shot the guy in his vitals and did not kill him, it did not damage him anything. This is what Deku is doing. He's shooting each and every one of the villains and knocking them unconscious. So then Deku would fly back to where Shoto Aizawa is, and he's still fighting against some of the villains in there. And this is where basically Shigaraki comes in and he decays Aizawa's elbow. Now, this is where Deku would come in and he is getting ready to punch Shigaraki directly in the face, but the Nomu comes up out of nowhere. And Deku punches the Nomu, sending the Nomu crashing against the wall. Now, Shigaraki would be scared by this, and Deku and the Nomu would start to get in an intense fight with each other, but going from place to place all over the arena, just creating these craters as these two titans fight. Now, through Deku's peripheral vision, he would see that Shoto is reaching for Tsuyu, and Deku comes in and kicks Shoto directly into the face, sending him flying into Kurogiri. Now, the two of these two would crash into each other, and this is where Shigaraki would get up and look at Deku, who is still getting engaged with the Nomu. Then both of them are basically teleporting all over the area, and this is where Deku starts to hit him with simultaneously attacks. Now, Shigaraki yells out that saying, "You're wasting your time. This guy has shock absorption and a bunch of other healing quirks that you can't beat." And Deku says, well, if he has shock absorption, he doesn't have nullification, so I can hit him, and it's only a limit to what this guy can take. So Deku starts hitting him over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where Deku then kicks the Nomu up in the air and sends out this huge blast that reduces the Nomu to nothing but dust. Deku then looks at Shigaraki and says, "So much for your toy. Regeneration and shock absorption is two different things. You should study more, Tomura." And this is where his eyes would widen, and he would say, "How do you know my name?" And he'd say, "I know a lot about you villains. I know a lot about the ones that are not even in your cause, and I'm keeping a good eye on each and every one of them. I know about you, Kurogiri, All For One. I even know about Gecko Moria, the giant thing that All For One hides in the woods. I'm planning on giving him a visit soon. But this right here, my brain just holds a lot of knowledge, and I feel like I know all of you. I'm waiting for the rest of the villains to come out of hiding, and one of them I have a huge vendetta with. It was one villain that killed a mother and father while they were out doing hero work and possibly made a kid an orphan. Yeah, he's gonna see my wrath soon. Now this pink aura will start to flow around Deku as he looks at Shigaraki and say, and he grips his strength. Well, he grips his fist and looks at Shigaraki and says, "Make a move, Shigaraki. I dare you. Cause know this, when you do, I'm gonna do the same thing to you that I did to the Nomu. Your presence on this earth is no longer needed. You're craved and hell-bent for destruction. There's no reasoning with you. You would kill for the sake of your cause. You need to be annihilated and eradicated from this earth." Deku would have a serious stare, and his bloodlust on Shigaraki and Kurogiri would be immense, as Shigaraki and Kurogiri would just retreat, leaving some of the villains that were there. Now, yeah, that's how the battle trial went. Everything would be covered up, and covered up, but calm down. The heroes would eventually show up, All Might would eventually show up, and everything would just be basically one and done. So, yeah. It wasn't pretty much, they didn't have to go all over the place, go through that much casualties, and Shoto Aizawa really didn't get injured as much. Deku would have came over to him and healed his elbow from being injured by the Shigaraki. Now, once everything is done and settled with the USJ, the students would be just basically doing their own thing. Now we're going to get to the part of the UA Sports Festival. Now, Shigaraki wouldn't have, okay, I'm put this with you seriously as possible. Shigaraki tried that shit when they went to the mall and put his hand around Deku's neck because he knew he wasn't that strong. But this Deku, if Shigaraki did that, I think he would be smart enough to know that he wouldn't escape Deku, because basically Deku's body is weird as hell. He would just droop out of Shigaraki's hand and punch him directly in the stomach. So that part, it would be a wasteful time. He wouldn't even get a chance to talk to Deku. So, the UA Sports Festival would begin. So, all the classes will come out to meet Class 1A. Now, once they get there, this is where Bakugo would tell them to get out of my way, you extras. Now, Shin would come out and he would start to berate the class, but most of them would just listen to whatever he says. So, yeah. And now we're going to skip over the other stuff and get straight to the juicy part, the tournament. So now, we get to the tournament and everything is presented. The hero course, the general studies, support course, and the business course come out to compete in the tournament. Now, the first event was the 4 kilometer race, obstacle race. Now, the race starts with the students being cut off by robots. Now, Deku just flies through these robots. Him, Todoroki, Bakugo, and all the other students just start flying through them. Todoroki mostly freezes some of them, with Deku just basically smashing his way through some of them. Now, the second part was the fall. Now, on this, Deku would just jump from one to one until he crosses it. Basically easily, fast. He would just jump all over from each and every, the fall, but each and every column that was there, he would just jump on each one and just till he got to the other side, put it that way. Anyway, so the third one is the minefield. Now, this is what happens right here, and this is the cheesy stuff that Deku did. Well, Izuku did. So Izuku would rush across the minefield, and this is what Todoroki and Bakugo would be right on him as they're Todoroki was getting ready to freeze over the mines, but Deku did something that they weren't expecting. Deku looked back at them and smiled as he punched the ground, and the ground started to tremble as mines would start to go off, and it would cause Shigaraki and Bakugo's footing to be messed up, and causing them to lose distance on Deku as he rushed through the entrance exam. Well, basically, the entrance and came in first place. Then Todoroki would come in, they'd come in third place, and Bakugo would come in second. Now, why is that? And Bakugo is much a stronger version than himself than he was in canon. So, yeah. So, now we're going to get to basically the second event is the Calvary Battle. Now, most of the students are looking at Deku with a very evil look, like he's a target. Deku has 10 million points, and he has this headband that he ties around his head. And this is where he gets his normal team, but he would meet with Ida, and Ida would tell Deku that he doesn't want to be on his team because he doesn't want to follow him. He sees him as somebody he has to compete with. And Deku just shrugs his shoulders at this and says, oh, well, I kind of agree with you on that. But if you don't beat me, then don't get mad if you can't. Because it's the same thing that Bakugo says to this day, but he hasn't came close to outmatching me at all. So, good luck. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Good luck, Ida. Anyway, so as Deku goes to form his team, he will form the same team that he formed in canon, and basically all the other teams will try to come at Deku, but the one team that he would be faced off with would be Todoroki, Team Todoroki. Bakugo would try to come over there at Deku and everything, but Monoma would get in his way, and then he would have to fight him. So the both of them would get into a fight with Monoma using his copy Quark. So yeah, that wasn't gonna go too well for Bakugo. So, but Bakugo eventually, they eventually won and snatched all their quirks, snatched all their headbands off of them, making them lose the battle anyways. But Deku and Deku and Todoroki would be fighting against each other, and they would be missing a lot. And Ito would then go to use his reciprocal burst, and this is where he would be speeding. But at the last minute, as Todoroki is getting ready to grab Deku's hand, Deku would block Todoroki's hand and grab one of the headbands that was around Todoroki's neck, and this would be a fast motion too. Now, while this is happening, Ida thought they had snagged the headband, but he looked up and seen the headband was still on Deku's head. And this is where Deku would say, I told you, I outmatched you, but this is not to brag. Deku would then Deku would rush off, and he would do something very, very weird. Do the same thing that Todoroki, not weird, but do the strategy that Todoroki did. He would do the same strategy that Todoroki did. And Todoroki would come back and say, Ida, can you do that again? And Ida say, I have one more reciprocal burst that I can do. You just have to make it count. Ida will be breathing heavily as he does his reciprocal burst again, and he rushes at Deku, but this time they grab the headband that was around his neck, and to see that it was only 10 points. And Deku would say, come on now, do you really think I would have had that headband around me? I just used my ability, my quirk ability, to switch it out and make you think that this was the 10 million headband. The 10 million headband has always been on my head. See? One of my powers can be illusion too. I tried to tell you that, but anyway, so Deku just would be sitting there and the tournament would come to a close, but the same teams would have got advanced in the tournament. Luckily, Todoroki's team would be lucky that they advanced, but anyway, with all that being said, now we get to the tournament, the final event with all 16 competitors in a 1v1 tournament. Now, the first battle would be Deku versus Shinso. Now, Deku would be in the ring with Shinso, and Shinso would be berating some Deku, like saying nasty things about his friends and stuff like that. But Deku, even though he's the same Deku as ever, he still has a competitive side, and he's looking at Shinso. But he also remembers what one of his comrades said to him to not say nothing to him. So, basically, Deku just keeps his mouth closed, and he looks at Shinso as he starts to walk towards him. And each step, Shinso is trying to berate Deku, and he's saying in his head, why won't this guy talk back? Say something, you idiot! As he's rushing towards Deku, and then he gets punch him, but Deku just dodges his punch and punches Shinso directly in the stomach, making the boy cough up spit. And then he gets into a battle with Shinso, punching him directly in the face over and over, and then he ends up kicking Shinso directly into a wall. And this is where Deku is basically crouching at the tournament, like basically the tournament ring. And he looks at Shinso, who basically crawls out of the rubble and stands up coughing. And he looks at Deku, and Deku just says, for someone whose ability is to brainwash a person, you are heavily, heavily out-trained. You have no basic skill but a punch. So you should start to basically train more. I do think it's a teacher that you can learn from. Shoto Aizawa could teach you a lot. And you need to learn a lot. I mean, of course your brainwashing quirk is indeed strong, but just look how easily you've gotten beat. Like, to a guy who knows martial arts and how to train and get away and get around manipulation like that, believe me, I know my ways around manipulation. Just like in the Calvary Battle, I just manipulated one of my fellow students with switching the headbands out when I actually didn't. You have to know how to play mind games with the person and how to target those sweet insecurities. But it won't be happening on me. But I congratulate you, Shinso. You are indeed a worthy opponent, but your skills just wasn't suited for this kind of fight. Well, against me at least. He would stick his hand out and get Shinso up, and he would just tell Shinso to train his hardest to basically learn fighting styles to coax and help out your quirk. Your quirk needs basically something to lean on. Put it that way. Now, the next battle would be Hinata Shero, tapeworms, like I like to call him, versus Todoroki, which would be a wash. So we ain't really gonna go into that. Denki Kaminari versus Shinozaki, the Vine Girl, yeah, wash. Mei versus Ida would be a forfeit because Mei just wanted to blunt her technology to the crowd. So yeah. Ashido versus Anayama. She would beat Ashido She would beat Anayama by hitting his ass with a mean ass uppercut. Yeah. Now, Tokuyami versus Yaya Rosu. Yaya Rosu would get overwhelmed by Dark Shadow, and eventually she wouldn't even know that she stepped foot out of bounds and be heavily sad by this. But some of the students at Deku would cheer her up, telling her that it's not the end. You can become stronger. Just don't look at this as your downfall. Now, Tesu versus Kirashima, the both of them would go into a fist fight with each other, just trading punches and end up knocking each other out. So then they would have to come back to settle the match, as it was a draw. Now, Uraraka versus Bakugo, of course, Uraraka would do her best at going against Bakugo, even creating all the rubble that Bakugo basically destroyed and throwing it at him, but he basically destroyed it all with his explosions. But he wouldn't be that hard on her. Now, when Ochaku was getting ready to fall, Bakugo would speed up and catch her before her head hit the ground. And this is where Bakugo would end up carrying Ochaku to the medical ward, and he would say that you fought very well. And this is where Shaku would just fall unconscious by this. But she would be happy that Bakugo is treating her with such care, even after the fight. So then after Bakugo and Uraraka's fight, then we get to the arm wrestle for Tatsu and what's the name? Kirashima. Now Kirashima would eventually win. Now we get to the next battle with Totoroki. Todoroki. I think it was Todoroki versus Ida? No, it wasn't, because that was after. It had to be after. Okay, yeah. So it would be Deku versus Todoroki. Now, while in this battle, Deku and Todoroki are staring at each other, and before then, in that fight, in the Calvary Battle, Deku did make Todoroki use his flames to get an advantage, to try to create some advantage for himself and his team. So Todoroki would tell Deku about his whole past, about how his father is an asshole and his father is abusive and stuff like that, and forced marriage and all that kind of stuff. And Deku hears this and he can't help but feel sorry for Shoto. But then this is where Deku walks up to Shoto and he tells him that your best bet in this tournament is to use your flame Quark, because if you don't, the ice is not going to help you. You're going to get badly beaten if you don't use your full power fighting me. I take the fun part in fighting, but I also take the serious part of fighting and mix it into a concoction that makes me a beast. So I want you to please take this fighting seriously. Take the tournament serious. Come at me with your full power, because if you half-ass it, I'm not going to take it easy on you. I have not taken it easy on anybody in this tournament, because I believe that each and every one of us are going at it with our 100%. So if you're not 100% and you're not coming at me with everything you have, Todoroki, I can't see you beating me, and I can't see me forming a rivalry with you. So it's up to you to make that choice for yourself. Do you become beaten without using your full power and basically just be known as a loser? Or would you use your full power and become something great? Deku would walk off for Todoroki, giving him time to think. Now, once the two of them would get onto the field, Todoroki would still be using his ice, and Deku would just sigh at this. But this would switch up as Todoroki would ignite his fire side, and he would start to smile at Midoriya and say that he's going to become a great hero, and his power is his, and it's going to be shaped in his way. Deku and Todoroki start going at it as the both of them start to fight, speeding around the tournament using fire and ice. As fire and ice, ice shards start to fly everywhere, and fire starts to basically create a smoke screen and start to create steam with it. Steam. Anyway, so Deku and Todoroki would start trading blows with each other, and the both of them would start to fight, and Deku would be getting not getting overwhelmed, but the ice would be causing an issue, something hard to breathe, but Deku would get over it. So Deku would then create a bad gas mask or some kind of jacket and ice stuff to basically berate that effect, basically mocking Todoroki and making him mad a little bit. So what Todoroki does is he starts heating up the area, to which Deku just rips off the jacket and mask, and he says, "I was just kidding." So the both of them would just get into another fistball with each other, but Deku is showing no signs of damage. Every time Totoro damages him or hits him with fire or ice, Deku's body just heals from the damage that he's taken. And with that, Deku then basically, him and Todoroki goes in for a final attack. Deku gets into a stance, and it's much similar to Goku's Kamehameha, but the blast is like pink. And Deku doesn't even say anything. Deku just yells out "Detroit" as he then gets into a stance, and this gleam starts to shine. And Todoroki then combines his ice and his fire to create this beam-like effect, and the both of them just go at it with each other. Now, on this time around, Todoroki is the one who's out outside of the tournament, and Deku's body is heavily burned, damaged. His clothes, his pants is tattered. His arm is like limping, like broken and stuff like that. That's what it looks like. And then Deku all of a sudden just heals from all the damage that he's taken, and he tells Todoroki that you're incredible. That was an incredible attack. And Deku walks over to Todoroki, who is unconscious and very damaged from that attack that he just threw at him. Deku heals Todoroki up, and Todoroki regains his consciousness, and he looks at Deku, and Deku just shakes his hand and says that was an impressive battle. Todoroki knows that he lost the match, but he just smiles at Deku and tells him that he's gonna keep pushing forward to becoming stronger. And Deku looks at Todoroki and say, Deku looks at Todoroki and say, I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing what you're capable of, because what you just proved to me now is that you're well capable of being a rival and being someone I look forward to having by my side as we fight the battles in our future. Anyway, so with that, the next battle would be Deku versus Bakugo versus Kirashima, and Kirashima gets overwhelmed by Bakugo's explosions. They're just too much for him because he constantly has to block. So with all that being said, then Deku would go against Ida, which Deku would speed around Ida and beat him again. And this is where Ida would be shocked by this. He'd be heavily saddened by this, that he can't overwhelm Deku. But yeah, only got his speed, and Deku has a variety of other abilities to combat with you. Even plugging your engines so that you basically can't use your speed. So yeah, that part is an extreme weakness. Anyway, so with that being said, Deku and Ida, if you plugged them, you could just, but that caused a combustion, so I wouldn't even test that. Anyway, so Deku and Ida, the fight would be Deku was the victor after knocking Ida out of the ring. Now the next fight would be Bakugo versus Deku, and that battle would be very intense. The both of these titans would look at each other with very fierce stares, as the both of them love fighting and they can enjoy it. They love the thrill that it gives them. And the both of them, when the match says go, the both of them rushed at each other, delivering multiple blows and flashing all over the tournament. Now this is something Bakugo has picked up from Deku, and is something that is akin to his quirk, like an ability that he is adapted, called something like Flash Step. And Deku and Bakugo are just jumping around. Deku's having a time of his life, noticing that Bakugo, when he trains with Deku, he's constantly getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And Deku likes this because the only good fight that he's ever had is with All Might. And every time him and Bakugo fight, is as if Bakugo is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then one day they might fight on equal terms, and this might be actually interesting. And that's Deku's goal. He wants only Bakugo to fight with him on equal terms. Possibly even Todoroki one day. So him and Bakugo are going at it, and Bakugo is getting exhausted from this, but Deku then replenishes his stamina and say, you can keep going, let's keep going. And over and over and over and over, Deku keeps replenishing Bakugo's stamina, and both of them keep trading blows with each other. Now this is where Deku is starting to feel fatigue now. His regeneration is slowing down, and his is starting to slow, because he notices this from when they were little, that he kept pushing Bakugo's stamina. He kept regenerating Bakugo's stamina over and over and over and over again, to the point that it depleted some of his powers and put him on cooldown. So Deku is now breathing heavily, and him and Bakugo are looking at each other, to which Deku just starts to power up, and they both launch at each other. Bakugo does a howitzer impact, launching himself in the sky and spinning in a tornado-like fashion at Deku, to which Deku then just jumps at Bakugo and unleashes a barrage of many fists, and they start just clashing with each other, creating this giant explosion in mid-air. The both of them would come falling out of the air, but Deku would land on one knee, and Bakugo would just fall unconscious. Now, with that being said, Deku would then fall unconscious himself, but he would be declared the winner of the tournament. Now, when the people would come up there to retrieve Bakugo and Deku would stand up, and he would breathe out heavily as his wounds and everything would start to heal. He would walk over and heal Bakugo, but then this is where Bakugo would just be sitting down and look at Deku and just smile at him. The both of them would look out to the crowd, and Deku would hold Bakugo's arm up, and the both of them, he would then say, unleash his hand, and then create a bunch of balloons and confetti, and that would be the end of the tournament. So, with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this movie. So, this is going to be broken into two parts. This is the first part of what if Deku was had Super Boo's powers, or was Super Boo's reincarnation. Put it that way. But anyway, so this is going to be the first part to that video. And in the second part, I'm going to be covering all the remaining arcs that are in the anime series. I'm not going to too much be going into manga because I don't read My Hero Academia manga. But anyway, so without any further ado, you guys have a good day, a good night, and plus ultra. Good night, guys.
君の虜になって